The mate tool in the assembly mode is our key tool for connecting components together. Go ahead and click on mate under the assembly toolbar, and you can see our basic mates are coincident, parallel, perpendicular, tangent, concentric, lock, and we've got a distance as well as an angle. So those are our key tools we're going to use to build this assembly. First things first is SOLIDWORKS automatically will generally pick the correct mate for the selections you choose. So in this case here, I'm going to choose this face right here. And notice new in SOLIDWORKS 2016 is the part automatically turns into this semi-transparent mode so you can see through it, which makes things a lot easier. Then I'm going to choose this face right here. And notice those two parts just slide together and I've got a nice representation of that mate. If that's the one you want, you're good to go. Go ahead and click on the green check mark. You can also change that mate to any one of these other mates here or over here on the side, but notice because I chose two faces, it says, well, more than likely you want these faces touching or you want them coincident. If you're happy with that, go ahead and click on OK, and that first mate is complete. If you don't like that, you can always just go back. Okay, there's other ways to do that exact same mate. For instance, in this case here, I'm going to choose the inside of the hole and the outside of this piece here. Notice now those are a concentric mate, but now the part's still not attached together. So most time you need three mates to fully define a component. So in this case here, I can move it up and down. I can't move it right or left because it's now mated to this part here. And this red piece here is what we call fixed at the origin. So it's staying where it is and all the other components are going to be moving to it. So the next component mate I need to make is either like make the top of this mated with the top of that, which will bring those two together. Click on OK. But you notice if you click on this and you do a section view, I'm going to click on OK and click on section view. I'm going to look inside there. That's actually not the right mate because there's a little gap there. If you see on either side, there should be a gap in here, but there shouldn't be a gap there. That should be touching. So really that's the wrong style of mate, but it does work to get things together in close to the right fashion. So let's go back and change that mate. And to get to mates, to modify them or delete them, I've got a new folder over here on my feature manager. And here it is. If I click on the drop down next to it, I've got this first mate here. I've got this concentric mate here, and it highlights it in the window for you. And this last mate here on the top. You can go back and edit that mate if you want to, or you can just click on your keyboard and delete the mate. Click OK. And now I can just pull that part directly apart again. Now, if I want to add another mate, I can say, well, instead of the top of that part or the edge, just delete it here in the box. I want that surface there, and I want to mate it to this surface here. Now, notice I've already added another mate, which was that concentric mate, and that's not going to affect this because it's not going to violate it. But for some reason, if you created two mates that violate each other, it would give you some type of an error that says, I cannot complete your request. But that very first mate here, which this one, or sorry, the second mate, this is the concentric mate, that's actually redundant. I don't need that at all. It's not hurting anything to have it there, but because I've fully defined it with this secondary mate, I can delete that one if I want to, but it's not going to hurt anything if I leave it there. All right, moving on. These two components over here. I'm going to click on mate one more time. Mate selections. And the best way to choose your mate selections is to say them out loud. I would like the inside of this washer here to be around the outside of this post right here. Click on that pair and automatically they slide together in a concentric mate. Click OK. And my secondary mate here is going to be this face here, and spin your model around and that face right there. Those two slide together and click OK. That's my secondary mate. Now, if you click over here and look in the tree itself, so here's our feature manager, notice this little tiny minus sign in front of those parts. And that means that that part is still free floating. It's not fully defined. It's got another degree of freedom. So both this component here and this component here are not fully defined. Even though they look like they are, I can still spin either one of these. If I spin it, you can't really see anything changing because it's just spinning around that origin. But I do have that degree of freedom, and I want to point out that sometimes it's okay to leave something free floating and just sliding around or have the ability to spin because it's not going to affect anything. But if you do need to lock it down, I could jump into maybe one of the planes inside of a part. So if you click on this one here, inside of there, I've got the original fundamental planes, like the front plane. And I can choose maybe the front plane or right plane here. Hold down Control, go ahead and select both of those. Come up to Mate and mate those together. Notice they become a coincident mate between the two. Click OK. And now this component here, the green one, is fully defined. Notice the little minus sign goes away. So that's how you fully define a component. And like I said, most of the time you do need at least 2 to 3 mates to fully define a component so it doesn't have the ability to slide around in space. All right, moving on, back up to mate. This time I'm going to choose this face here, spin my model around and choose this face here. Those two slide together, but notice they're still way down here, not in space. But if you look at it like this, you can see these two are lined up. Now click and drag. Let's get it close to where we want to be. I'm going to choose this face right here and this face right here at the top, and those slide together. And then for my last mate, I'm going to say, well, the end of this part here is going to be mated to the end of this part right here. But notice as soon as I do that, I get an error. And this is the first error. We need to figure out why we're getting this error. So let's go ahead and cancel out of that. And why we're getting that error is because this angle here doesn't match this angle here. So what's going to happen is when I get this part close, it's actually not going to be a flat surface when you get to the end. Notice there's a little bit of a taper to it at the very end. And that's something that's going to be very common when you start dealing with parts inside of SOLIDWORKS. How do we solve this problem? Well, one of those ways is to click on a mate pair that's a little bit different. I can move this part just a little bit out, click on the edge itself, and then maybe this face, and that will work just fine. All right, so there it is. And it looks like we might have lost that other mate up here. So this one here to this inside surface here, they slide together and click OK. So those are our mating pairs to make this whole thing work. And notice we do have an issue here. And that's one of the beautiful things about SOLIDWORKS to create an assembly. You're going to figure out your problems now when you're building it in the computer, not later on when you're building it in real life. And that's going to be the real time saver of building, modeling, and analyzing your parts all in the 3D CAD environment.